Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Palmetto Sports Daily. Rick Henry here in Columbia. We've got Teagan Brown down on the beach, Myrtle Beach. Kevin Bilodeau in Charlestown, and Carmine Jamay in the upstate in Greenville. Again, I want to wish all of you a happy new year. And also, this is a big anniversary that we're celebrating here on Palmetto Sports Daily. This is our 1-year anniversary. So congratulations to all of you, and also all of the folks out there who have been loyal viewers. And producer Nick, I'm a little disappointed that we don't have balloons and confetti raining down upon us.
I know.
Okay, but that's okay. It's still we're celebrating the rest of this month, so we'll have plenty of time for the celebration. And also, there's a lot of celebrating going on in the Queen City of Charlotte because the Carolina Panthers, even though they had to back their way into the playoffs, get some help from the Atlanta Falcons, they're in, and they will host the LA Rams in the wild card round Saturday at 4:30. And yesterday we made our predictions. I'm picking the Rams to win this one because they're not going to be taken by surprise. The Panthers beat them during the regular season, but the Rams are still one of the best teams in the National Football League. And one thing we can say about the Panthers, they are consistently inconsistent.
Yeah, they certainly are, Rick. That's very well put. In fact, for a 10-week span, they had gone win-loss, win-loss, win-loss until when they needed to win, and they lost 2 games in a row. That was the first time they lost back-to-back games since the very start of the season against the Seahawks and the Buccaneers. So I'm also not very confident in the Panthers in this matchup. A lot of that having to do with their own inconsistency, but also because the Rams, like you said, are so good and coming in with an overwhelmingly winning record of 12-5 versus the Panthers at 8-9. And still kind of crazy that they're hosting a playoff game, but of course that goes to the division champ. But not to be discounted that they did put themselves in a position to receive the help from another division rival. They ran the ball in the first meeting against the Rams 40 times between Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle for 165 yards, so maybe they just need to keep pounding. But Dave Canales was asked in his press conference about if it's disrespectful that they're 10.5-point underdogs at home, and here's what he said.
Hey, that's what it is. I don't know how they come up with those numbers, but I'm sure they have algorithms for us. We can't worry about that. We just got to worry about playing our best football. That's been the pursuit. We have to get back to making sure we're efficient on third down, get our run game going, offensively speaking, and defensively finding ways to get off the field and taking advantage of those championship moments along the way. And here we go. We have another one right in front of us. Just really excited about being back in Bank of America Stadium one more time. We left this stadium after the Seahawks game, not sure if we're going to get another opportunity, but to have one more chance in front of our fans with the energy that it was like, especially down the stretch this season, it's a really exciting opportunity for us, and we're excited for it.
So one of the things that is discouraging is the Panthers' highest scoring output all season was against the Rams with that 31-point output. They scored 30 points 3 other times, one of those unfortunately in a win over Rick's Cowboys, which he attended, and his son gave him a little bit of grief about the result of that game. But I just don't know if they'll be able to contend and score with a Rams team, Kevin, now that's not going to be taken by surprise, like Rick said, and is going to be totally juiced up with their very high-powered offense, good defense, just a solid all-around football team, and Matthew Stafford just has so many targets, along with a really good running game, that this would be a massive upset if the Panthers were able to win.
It would be, and we mentioned yesterday that 10.5-point spread, and it's one of the biggest ever in the NFL playoffs for a home underdog, and it's got to be. You mentioned the Panthers beating the Cowboys, and Rick's just seething over this. I can just tell through the monitor right now because he's upset that the Panthers are in the playoffs, period, coming in with this losing record, but knowing that his team could have stopped this, and if they had just taken care of business in Charlotte and had those horses riding around Bank of America Stadium coming through, they could have kept Carolina out of the postseason, but it just didn't work out that way. But, yeah, I totally believe they caught the Rams by surprise. Now, Matthew Stafford has had a couple of stinkers. Everyone's talking about how he's going to be the MVP, but he's had some games where he has not been a very good quarterback. Not a lot of them, but he's had a few. So there is a precedence going into this game, Teagan, but I still think the Rams are going to take care of business in this one.
Yeah, I think they are too. You know, we talked yesterday about our score predictions. I took the Rams in this one. I just think that with the inconsistency we've seen from the Panthers this season, you know, especially from Bryce Young, you know, they thought he was going to be the answer when they took him at the top of the draft, you know, a few years ago. Here we are. He was benched last year in favor of Andy Dalton for a little while. He came back. It seemed like he learned something. This season, he's better than he was at the start of last year, but I just still haven't seen the consistency that I think you should see in what you want from a franchise quarterback. So I don't know if we're going to see whatever version of Bryce Young against the Rams. Hopefully it's the best version. But yeah, I mean, just the fact, Rick, that we're seeing an 8-9 team go to the playoffs and be NFC South champions, definitely not something we expected at the start of this year.
No. Again, I'll give the Panthers credit. That they won more games than they did last year. But to have an entire division finish with losing records, that should be an automatic disqualifier for the whole division. Hey, we're going to pick some teams with winning records to take that slot. And Kevin, thanks for reminding me again about my Cowboys losing to the Panthers. And when you add the caveat that, yes, if my Cowboys had whipped them, then the Panthers would not be in the playoffs. So, yeah, I'm a little salty about that, and I can't wait for the next time my Cowboys and Panthers get together. All right, that's going to wrap it up for the opening segment of the one-year anniversary show for Palmetto Sports Daily. We're taking a time out. We'll be right back to talk some basketball.
Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. We move over to college basketball, starting off here in the Low Country where the College of Charleston seems to have found their groove. After a slow start in non-conference play, the college has now won 6 in a row, including their first 3 conference matchups of the season, as they now sit at 10-6 on the year. They picked up a win last night at home over William and Mary. They got out to a big first half lead against the Tribe, up by as many as 14 in that first half. William and Mary actually made things close in the second half. They got the lead down to 4, but the college comes out on top in the end, taking this one 88-79. CFC holding William and Mary to just 9 for 36 on 3-pointers on the night and going 11 of 29 on their own, so shooting 38% from 3. I think one of the big deals for the College of Charleston has been the return of Colby Duggan. He's a all-conference player from last year at Campbell, made the transfer over to the College of Charleston this past offseason. He's been kind of up and down early on, didn't play the first several games because of an injury. It took him a little bit to kind of turn things on, but he seems to have found his groove as well. He had 17 points last night to go along with 4 rebounds and 4 assists. So the college in really good shape right now, off to a 3-0 start in the conference after this victory last night. Chris Mack talked after the win.
Defensively, they're much improved from a year ago. They do a great job of keeping the ball to the side and, you know, playing in no middle and switching and playing with aggressiveness. So we knew it would be a challenge. Quite honestly, surprised that we got up by as many points as we did. If Jalen made those 2 free throws, we would have gone in there, you know, 16 points. And then, you know, we talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. But couldn't take care of the ball, get matched up in transition in the first 3 or 4 minutes, and then we knew we had a game on our hands. But, you know, our kids hung tough.
The college will be back in action coming up on Saturday when they play host to Hampton, looking for their 7th win in a row. Rick, South Carolina, back on the court tonight over at LSU.
Yeah, they're making the trip to Baton Rouge. They lost their SEC opener over the weekend to a very good Vanderbilt team. And so now they hit the road looking for their first conference win. And the key for the Gamecocks, 3-point shooting. Head coach Lamont Paris told us before the season that they were going to play up-tempo. They were going to rely on their 3-point shooting. One big problem, their 3-point shooting hasn't been that impressive. Right now, they're 15th out of 16 teams in the conference, making just over 30% of their 3-point field goals. Now, on their 2-point field goals, much better, one of the better shooting teams in the conference. And Coach Paris was asked, like, hey, you know, does this mean a change in philosophy? Is he going to stick with the 3-pointers even when they aren't falling? Let's hear from the coach right now.
again, as I say, they go hand in hand. I would say our 2-point field goals are in large part a byproduct of the fact that we do shoot threes. The floor's open. Right? I think for us, we don't have guys. Some teams are built in a way you go 1-4 low or you set a ball screen and like then it just gets figured out off of the ball screen. It just gets figured out. Our team's not built that way. And so our 2-point field goals oftentimes are a byproduct of the fact that we do have multiple guys that can shoot threes.
Yeah, only problem when those threes aren't falling and you get some long rebounds and that can trigger a fast break for the opposition. And before you know it, you're down by double digits. So after listening to Lamont there, I think we'll continue to see them put up those 3-pointers by the bushel. Carmine.
Yeah, Rick, I wanted to ask you about Lamont before we get to Clemson. I saw the clip of him saying, we got a lot of coaches in here in the media. We got a lot of coaches because people were asking about certain philosophies like the 3-point shooting and other things about, not putting the full court press on soon enough or waiting. Do you sense that he's getting a little testy and a little more frustrated, or how do you evaluate him and with that recent thing with the media that he had in the press conference?
Yeah, that's the first time that I can recall that he did get a little snippy at the media, and maybe he is feeling the pressure because, last year was just awful, and especially you have a new athletics director, and when you look at the state of Carolina football, 4-8, Carolina baseball, one of the worst programs in the SEC last year, and the second year for head coach Paul Maneri, and then men's basketball coming off an awful season. So, yeah, he probably is feeling a little bit of the pressure, and especially when, you're not beating Power 4 teams, even your non-conference Power 4 teams. And the SEC, I don't know if they'll be as strong as last year, but they're going to be a pretty darn good conference. And he could be set up again for another losing record and missing out on the NCAA tournament 2 years after they made it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great points. And also looking at like a very good basketball conference, as usual, the ACC. And that's where we have Clemson men's basketball playing in its home conference opener, hosting 24th ranked SMU, which gets up and down the court like the Mustangs. That's their mascot. They average 91 points per game. But if you haven't followed Clemson men's basketball closely, you're now getting into the college basketball season. A little primer, they're one of the best teams in the whole country, defending the 3-point line, not turning the ball over, and also bench scoring. They're one of the most balanced teams, as you see. And since their matchup here in Madison Square Garden, this team has won 5 games in a row, including over South Carolina. But they just opened with back-to-back conference wins on the road at Syracuse. Clemson won 64-61, and then they won at Pitt 73-68. And I was talking to head coach Brad Brownell for our All Access, where we break down the tape every Monday night at 7 o'clock on Fox Carolina, and we have those great feature stories online too. But I was saying, Coach, you guys like playing games in the 60s, sometimes in the 70s, because of that slower pace. So now they're going up against a very fast-paced SMU team for the conference home opener, and here was Coach Brad Brownell's keys to this matchup on Wednesday. Hosting SMU. What can you pull from pulling at these close games, the grinding conference games on the road?
We've got to grind it up a little bit. We've got to make sure our guys take care of the ball, have really good possessions, and then be opportunistic ourselves and run when we have some numbers every once in a while, knock a ball loose and get a couple easy baskets.
Well, Coach, thanks so much for the time. Congrats. 2 conference wins to start the schedule. And that was the 14th consecutive win for Clemson over Pitt. Just a crazy streak. They haven't lost to Pitt since 2015. And it also marked 10 road conference wins in a row for Clemson. So they're on the upswing, most wins ever in a 3-year span with 74, and they're continuing that so far. Not far from being ranked with a 12-3 record, Teagan. So Clemson looking good, and a home conference win over a top 25 team would be their first ranked win of the season if they can pull it off hosting SMU.
Yeah, Clemson having a lot of success there under head coach Brad Brownell. For Coastal, they're still trying to find the definition of success under head coach Justin Gray. This is his second year with the program. And now looking at the last few years for Coastal, 2 years ago, my very first year covering them, they got 9 wins. Cliff Ellis, of course, the legendary coach, along with Benny Moss, led them in that season. Last year, they got 10 wins. So, one more if we're counting the definition of success as doing better than the year before, then there we go. And this year, the Chants are on a pretty good track. They're 8-8 on the year so far. So already, 2 wins away from their tally last year. They've had a couple of heartbreakers in a row, though. The Chants losing to Georgia State just a couple days ago, and then before that, losing to Georgia Southern in overtime. So, a little bit of a struggle for them. They've got 1 Sun Belt win, but they're getting ready to play Old Dominion, the team that they've already gotten that conference win against. So the Chants have 3 big playmakers this year. It's Joshua Beadle, the Boston College transfer, who was at Clemson for a little bit before that. They've got A.J. Dantzler, who came from Lemoyne, a tiny little school in central New York, about 5 minutes down the road from Syracuse. And then Rashid Jones, one returner from last year on this roster. Also, just the 3 of them really making a big difference for this team. Jones last year was really the only one that kind of was that playmaker for them. So they're seeing a little bit more success in year 2 under head coach Justin Gray, but they're still looking for a few more wins than last year. We're going to keep talking basketball, but for the women on the other side. Welcome back into Palmetto Sports Daily. We just wrapped up talking about some men's basketball, so let's talk about the women. For the Chants, they're having a little bit of a struggle at this point in the season, which is really a turnaround to where they were last year. The ladies are 7-9, and they're 0-4 in conference play. And this is a team that just last year went to the WNIT for the very first time. They had a handful of impact players, but this year it just doesn't seem so far that the very big group of transfers and then freshmen that they brought in have quite found the way that they mold together. But if we are looking ahead to some of their games and maybe what could be a W on their schedule, the Chants are playing App State tomorrow night. App State is 0-3 in conference play. They've also got, I believe, 7 wins on the year, and they're averaging about 10 points less per game than Coastal is right now. The biggest issue for Coastal in this one will be the fact that App State does have the best defense in the Sun Belt right now. And that's something that they have struggled to just overcome this year is picking up the pace with their offense. And they talk about this coastal chaos and just being able to play fast out there. It just doesn't seem like they've quite found how to do that throughout the entire game yet. And, head coach Kevin Pedersen has talked a lot throughout this season, a lot throughout the beginning of the season, that it might take them 10, 11 games to figure it out, but we're past that point now. So I think they're still trying to figure out what their identity is right now. But yeah, we'll have to see. They're playing App State. So, Rick, how are the Gamecocks doing?
Ranked number 3 in the country, 15-1 overall, 2-0 in the SEC. And they picked up their first SEC road win on Sunday. They went down to Gainesville, beat the Florida Gators, but it was a little bit of a struggle, and that's what you get in the SEC. Florida is unranked, but South Carolina, they had a season-high 21 turnovers. They shot just 35% from the field, and they were only up by 5 points with 9 minutes left to play. But then Joyce Edwards got hot. They were able to pull away, and it was so tough during that game that Dawn Staley does something she normally doesn't do. As a matter of fact, she couldn't remember the last time that she used all of her timeouts, and she did because she felt the team was a little bit fatigued. They've had some games this year where they've only had 8 or 9 players available because of injury, and 4 players played around 30 minutes or more, but they were able to pull it out. And here's Dawn Staley after that win over the Gators.
I mean, they're all going to be like this. Like, they're not going to be like, we just going to walk through and win games by 30 points. That is not how it's going to be in our league. But, I mean, we knew it was going to be a tough game. Last time we were here, we were down big. Like, it might have been double digits. You remember? Last time we were double digits, early, double digits. So, we reminded our players of that. I don't think any of them were on the team, maybe Raven. So, I mean, we keep that in the back of our minds, and just, in real time, you got to figure out how to win. You got to make adjustments. You got to make sure your players are confident enough to turn the page and get to the next thing.
Yeah, and the next game is going to be Thursday night at Arkansas, and then they've got a stretch of games coming up where they're going to be playing Texas, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt. So, yeah, there's always a big challenge in front of you in the SEC women's basketball slate. All right, that wraps it up for this segment. We'll call another timeout, and we'll be right back.
Ending our year anniversary episode of Palmetto Sports Daily with some career and season accomplishments for some Clemson Tigers former men's basketball players and former first-team all-conference stars with the Tigers. That's Hunter Tyson, who just scored a season-high 14 points on 4 for 7 shooting with the Denver Nuggets. That's a season-high for him. And then the former big man, P.J. Hall, who helped the team get all the way to the Elite Eight and used to egg on the crowd with just 2 fingers at Little John Coliseum. He went for a career-high 13 points in 19 minutes off the bench for the Charlotte Hornets just down the road, shooting 83% from the field. And since getting called up from the G League this time around in 6 games starting last month, he's averaging 7.5 points, about 5 rebounds, and about 16 minutes of playing time. So he's really carving out a good role for himself in the pros, and hopefully we see this a little bit more in Charlotte, because it seems like, and we're hoping that he's here to stay, guys. So we'll see you next time. That's my celebration for the year anniversary. Check out the podcast, check out the app and our websites, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.